Good morning, everyone. Just us today so far. I'll officially call to order the regular meeting of Coachella Valley Water District Board of Directors, February 27th, 2024 here in Coachella. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
It's quality, not quantity, sir.
Yeah. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Actually, pretty good quantity today, too. A roll call, please.
Good morning, President Powell.
Here.
Vice President Estrada.
Here.
Director Bianco will be absent today. Director Aguilar.
Here.
And Director Nelson is absent as well.
Right. Okay, we do have a quorum. Don't leave. Are there any additions, deletions, or adjustments to today's agenda?
No, sir.
No, sir. Anybody from the public wishing to make comment at this time?
I see a member of the public present. Well, I guess the staff is public, but
Yeah, they have a right to speak, just like everybody.
I don't see anybody getting up.
Don't see anyone. All right. Moving on. We do have employee recognition. We have two anniversaries. 20 years for Fernando Mecate Cruz and 35 years for Jeffrey Taft, but I believe
Neither are here.
they are not here, so we are going to continue. We wish them well for their anniversaries. 35 is kind of a lot. Let's see, we have the consent calendar, items 6A through H.
John, I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay, all right, yeah. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 3-0, 2 absent. See, I told you we were going to move fast today. On to action items, 8, what is this, 8A. Approve our conservation program. Whose item is this?
Who's gonna come forward on
Is it Robert?
I believe it is.
Good morning, Robert.
Good morning, President. Good morning, President Powell and members of the board. Is this on? Okay, it's red. Thank you. Looks like it's on a slope.
It is. It looks like a compound slope.
It's not me.
It's got a list to starboard, as we used to say.
This is Starboard. Okay. I will keep that in mind. Thank you.
Pump ballasts.
So the item before you, you've heard in a previous iteration before, but actually excited to be sort of towards the end of this process where we can actually announce this publicly, to our interested participants. So I can provide as much detail as you want. If you need a presentation, I can do that. I can go high level, whatever your preference is. Really,
Just hit the high points. I think we know the
essence.
We've been at this for a
Okay.
really long time.
Sounds good.
Robert, I saw the first slides, and I think the first slides is an overview of the programs. I think what I was mostly interested is specifically this program
The elements.
and the
Sure,
details of it.
I can do that. So with that, I'll just jump right into the program elements. So again, I think you've seen largely most of these elements in a previous iteration when the board approved this back in, I think it was like May of 2022, when it's funded under a different funding source. So I'll just cover the highlights here. So this program covers a 3-year period between 2024 through 2026, including 2026. The participants can enter into terms varying from 1, 2, or 3 years, but it doesn't matter, the duration. They get paid the same on a volumetric basis as they do, for 1 year or 3 years, basically $340 an acre foot net. CVWD gets paid $400 acre foot, from reclamation, and then, so the balance is for foregone revenues, as well as labor expenses, for the agency. The $340 an acre foot is divided to the growers or the participants, is divided into two payments, basically in July and in December. So we're going on calendar years. During this period, the irrigation water availability assessment is also waived for the term of the participation. So if they're only in for 1 year, they only get the benefit for 1 year. And the rest of it, the landowner and leasing responsibilities, having to pay, making sure dust control is taking place. If they're a leasee, they have to get approval from the landowners, are still intact. And then I think one of the last elements, which is still a carryover from the old program, is there's no groundwater substitution. Now, one of the things I did skip over, I apologize, is the permanent crop aspect. And I didn't spell it out here, but permanent crops are meant to define like date trees, fruit trees, grapevines, pasture land, some pasture land, because you can have recurring crops once you harvest. It does not apply to sod farms, because once you cut, basically you have to, redo. So those are the general elements.
And that, Robert, that was the one thing that kind of threw me off. I didn't quite understand why we would only. I think this is saying that you have to have permanent crops to be able to participate.
Right.
And I didn't really understand. Maybe I don't have really a agriculture background, but
Sure.
but I figure that you could fallow, vegetables or something. And so, how did you get to that?
Well, I think this was pretty extensive discussions, with the board during closed session. And I think on the basis of that, well, maybe a couple of things. I think one is, we were kind of looking at different type of fallowing programs. And I think anything that's, doesn't involve fallowing was something that reclamation was going to have a really hard time with. Because, we're kind of thinking about like, source or crop substitution, and, some seasonal, and it was just too difficult to administer. I think, kind of the proof for reclamation, I think the bar was going to be pretty high. And we already, had spent a lot of time, speaking with reclamation about the different programs. So I think to get, launch this off the ground, there was a proposal, I think, from at least one board member, let's just, limit it to permanent crops. And so as a result of that, Steve Abbott and I looked at what would kind of define permanent crops, just kind of show that there was water use. That's how we arrived at this.
Yeah, okay. So what? Maybe help me out.
Yeah, let me see if I can help.
Thanks.
I mean, we've been looking at this for 2 or 3 years now, and I think with the vegetable, the rotational crops like vegetables, it'd be very easy for somebody to fallow one property that they've been farming and move that production to another property, essentially undetected, either through a different entity or whatever. You might have a different landlord. And I just think it would be easy to kind of do the cat and mouse, game playing with the rotational crops. And I mean, I could think of a lot of ways to do it. Whereas with permanent crops, it's a much more of a commitment to make that reduction in water use.
No, I get it. I think you're right. There's a lot of open land out there, and if you just switch one parcel for another parcel, you basically have no savings in water. So I get that. I'm just concerned that, do we have a sense of how big the pool might be of folks who have permanent crops that I mean, is it too limited to where it's not going to really be much of a program? Did you do some preliminary analysis on that? And then the other question is there a way to get around that concern of playing cat and mouse with the row crops, where do we have the ability? Is it too hard to just, kind of put a cap on deliveries to new parcels that aren't being farmed right now? Maybe you have a cutoff date, and maybe that's the way that we get around that.
So I think I understand the two questions. So I'll try to address the first one because I think it's a little easier. I don't know what the pull is. I think some prime candidates, could be, like date trees, for example, that have sort of like outlived, their crop life. And again, I'm not a farmer either, so I don't know. But we did, deliberate this quite a bit internally on what the pull is. And again, this is a voluntary program, and we're stepping up. But I think we also need a program. Again, I think to President Powell's point, that's something that's that's relatively easy to administer. It meets the proof that's needed. So remember, it's not just Reclamation that's looking at this. It's going to be Metropolitan that's going to be looking at this as well, our water order, and kind of demanding a pretty high, level of confirmation that the water that we're saving is really there. So I don't think the pool is going to be huge, but we'll find out more when we if the board approves.
Yeah, the timing of it is potentially good for attracting some participants. The table grape, the three
I'm sure
main
the
permanent
grapes,
crops
yeah,
are
the
table
grapes.
grapes, dates, and lemons, and
Right.
they've all had very challenging markets lately, and so the thinking, at least in my mind, is that you may have folks that are hanging on, that are still keeping their trees or their vines because they think maybe next year will be better, even though they may not be making anything on these crops. And so this program might tell them, oh, there's another way. Why don't you cut your losses on your crop and do this instead? And so those crops are being irrigated, and they're not really. I mean, some of them are very challenging in terms of trying to make money.
Right.
And it's just really hard to make that decision of do I stop? And with a permanent crop, some folks are hanging on to acreage and irrigating it that may not be viable.
What are your thoughts on the possibility of putting some sort of cap on new deliveries to parcels that have historically had no agriculture for, like, let's say the last 5 years or something, and then opening it up to the row crops and kind of eliminate that concern of the cat and mouse issue? Do you think it's too difficult? Do you think it sends a bad signal?
I don't know that you can. This is a voluntary program, so to tell somebody they can't irrigate their land that they own, I think
difficult.
would be problematic,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And
No.
they've also been paying the IWA.
Yeah, they've been paying them.
Yeah.
It is.
No, I agree. Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
No, I appreciate the thoughtful question. I mean, this is something that we've kind of bounced around as well. And
No, I remember.
Yeah, it's it's new, and I know IID's been doing this sort of thing for a long time, and they've really adjusted it numerous times because it's hard to get it right the first time.
it is.
Yeah,
And I think President Powell hit the nail on the head in terms of a lot of this is kind of a program of opportunity. If the prices are good for these crops that we're talking about, there would be no incentive. But I do think that, I think that additional comment about, the market being tough, may be enough to kind of drive or incentivize these guys to, fallow the lands for the next 3 years, let's say. And while they, ponder the next step in their business decision.
Right.
Robert, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So, I'm assuming the participants will have to sign an agreement.
They will.
So there's a provision, this is my question, there's a provision in the agreement with the Bureau that talks about monitoring obligations, padlocks and lockouts and
Right.
berms and all of that. So will this language in Section 6 be incorporated into that agreement?
In the grower
in
agreement?
the grower agreement?
Yes, sir.
It will, okay.
Yes. I think, and these aren't our requirements, these are reclamation
Yeah, I
requirements.
know, I don't recall having seen the agreement, maybe before, previously we'd seen the agreement, but I was just checking to see if this provision was gonna be in that agreement, and you just assured me it is.
Yes, sir.
Good.
And we will be, discussing this with, the potential participants, I think in another couple of weeks' time, once, if the board approves.
Yeah,
To kind of spell these out, for them.
okay, thank you.
Robert, did we do away, because I didn't see it on here, did we do away with the minimum acreage or minimum,
We did.
so it doesn't matter?
Well, right now, we don't know, what the demand's going to be. So I think, so.
I agree with that, I like that.
Yeah.
I think at one point we were thinking like 10 acres minimum or 10 acre feet or something.
Well, we didn't want, that was when the program was a lot more open as well. And we didn't want to, get a bunch of applicants who had like 10 acres. And so I think, whether you administer, one that's, 100 acres or one that's 10 acres, I think it's going to take, same level of effort from
Okay.
an administrative
So
standpoint.
there's no minimum. Okay, thank you.
Not right now, yeah.
Thank you.
And I think, you've seen this slide before, so this is just a relationship between where CVW, the district plays in the process. So we're going to be the program administrators, kind of acting like the middle person between reclamation and our growers. And I don't know if there's a need for me to go through the schedule and the timeline. I think we kind of talked about this before, but this is largely just kind of talking about, the payment schedule, how the cash flows into CVWD and then how it goes out. So the first year is a little bit challenging since it's only a half-year program. We're getting into this program, a little bit late, but the years of 2025 and 2026 will be 4 years. So if you just kind of, pull those dates back to like January starts, that you'll see the, what that might look like. So unless you have any questions, I'm not going to cover this. No need. And the participation steps, I think we already talked about a little bit. So there's the application step, which once the board approves, we'll open up, for interest, answer any questions, figure out what the application pool looks like, and do our due diligence and have some conversations with reclamation just to make sure we're on the same page on this. So there's absolutely no question that we're going to get paid for the acres and the volume that we committed to, and then we do the verification and then the reimbursement process. So I think it's actually a lot simpler than the previous program where it's much more open. So thank you for that. I guess the only last thing on this next steps that I didn't put on here is the forbearance part. The board approved the forbearance for 2023 at the January board meeting. So for the California parties, there's still recognition that we need to do a general forbearance for 24, 25, and 26. I think IID is kind of working on theirs, and we'll follow suit on that. So with that, that's the essence of the program, and happy to answer any other questions that you might have before you deliberate on whether to authorize the general manager or not to participate.
Just curious if, let's say we get into this and we find we need a minor adjustment to something.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a process to do that, or do we have to go, you know what I mean? Because it's approved by these other parties. I mean, how difficult do you think it would be to make a minor adjustment to this?
I guess I'm trying to figure out, when you say minor,
I don't know what a minor, yeah. Who knows what it would
that
be.
is.
But I mean, are we locked into the words that are in this agreement, or how, if we need to make a change, how does that work?
I think, in dealing with reclamation, I find that, if you can convince them there's a practical reason for changing it, I think, they'll definitely consider it. So I think, sometimes the administrative process of, getting the words changed on a page is more difficult than the concepts.
Yeah.
Robert, there are 4 pretty specific action items listed.
Yes, sir.
Do you need one motion, or do you need 4?
I prefer just one motion if you all are comfortable with
Well,
it.
it's the actual resolution, right?
The actual resolution is to
It
approve.
does have all 4
Has all
actions
4.
in it.
Thank you. General Counsel?
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Jack,
There's a resolution 2024-08 that takes all 4 actions.
I got you,
So,
okay.
To answer your question, you could make a motion to adopt this resolution.
Okay, thanks. Well, I will then make a motion to adopt resolution 2024-8.
And I will second that motion.
Good, yeah, thanks, guys. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, pass 3-0. Thanks,
Thank you,
Bob.
sir.
Thank you, Robert.
Okay, 8B is this contribution to charities that Vice President Estrada asked to add to the agenda, so go ahead.
Sure, I mean, I'm sure you all know that there's several community events, charities, causes that, the Valley puts on over the year. And I, for one, get a lot of requests. I've been here for 10 years almost, and I've always gotten hit up and said, hey, would CVW like to participate, be a sponsor, etc. And at some of these events, we've actually participated as attendees. I think last year I brought it up also, the Senior Inspiration Awards. That's one that I get that I get an email almost every year. And so there's a request for sponsorship. The smallest sponsorship is $600 for a table. I thought that would be reasonable. It's not 5,000. It's not 10,000. It's a table. And I've asked who else is sponsoring, kind of understanding that we somehow have a maybe somewhat of a policy, unwritten policy. Maybe it's written. I don't know. That we don't really contribute to efforts or events that are not water related. And so I think that's something that I've been bumping up against. And so I'm happy to see that this is coming forward to kind of have a discussion on, how do we expand on that. One of the reasons why I think it might be good for us to kind of look into these events is that I know that, for example, IID sponsors a lot of events. They sponsor the State of the Cities. They sponsor a lot of things here in the Coachella Valley. And I think it's a way for them to kind of show their presence in these community events. I asked who else was sponsoring this particular event. My understanding is that Mission Springs Water District is also sponsoring a table. There might be others, including IID. And so, it doesn't seem like it's not doable. I also understand that the IID, I don't know what policy they have, but they do sponsor scholarships throughout the year. I always see them giving out checks, to students, things like that. And I know that the city of Coachella has a budget set aside for sponsorships for community. I think they call it a community grant, and so they set a budget, and throughout the year they decide to sponsor whoever they propose to sponsor. So it's something that's done, and so I wasn't necessarily looking to discuss kind of a policy moving forward other than just approving the sponsorship for this particular event. But I think it might be good for us to kind of set some sort of rule.
Yeah.
So if I may,
Yeah.
there really isn't a need for a policy, but you could certainly have one. The difference here is, as a county or city has public safety, health, and welfare authority to engage in sponsorships of a wide range of things. As a special district, we are limited to using public funds for a mission of the district: water, wastewater, flood control. So the issue always becomes, is this money being used to further the mission of the district? If it's an event where it's water or wastewater is part of the topic of the presentation, or there's an opportunity to pass something out, have a booth, make a pitch for water conservation, for example, then it's acceptable. The issue becomes a special district with limited powers sponsoring something of general interest. that a city or county could do, but a special district should not. So that's the dividing line.
So Jeff, what about revenues that we get that are non-rate revenues, such as, cell tower leases? Or maybe we probably have a whole basket of these things that's one example of revenues that maybe we have more discretion with.
That's a good question. It's a non-rate revenue brought in by the water district to help further the goals and funding of things for the water district. So I think somebody could, still argue that even though it's non-rate revenue, it's revenue brought in by a special district. What is the special district authorized to do? So that's why, for example, you can use non-rate revenue to help fund a low-income program to help water customers with their bill. Still,
that
that's
makes sense.
furthering a mission of the district.
So, and I agree. I think I would argue that being involved in the community helps the district. And I see these events, these are big events. There's a lot of people at these events, elected officials. And I think that, being there, being present furthers the mission of the district. And that's, at least for me, the reason why, it makes sense, in a way to figure out a way to be involved in the community.
Yeah, that's always the question. And I have a lot of clients that raise this very same question, and they usually go to the level of, for example, being involved in the chamber. Get the name, this is the water district, we are the water utility, we're out there, come see us for water conservation measures. But the further you get away from the event not having a water component, the question could become, is that a gift of public funds?
And I appreciate the interest of being involved in the community. The challenge that we have is if we buy a table, to make sure that the table is actually filled. We've had these events in the past where we've bought a table and nobody's attended. I think Mission Springs has a kind of a local reputation of all their board members show up at everything, or just about, which could or could not be, an issue in a different sense. But, if there's a desire by the board to support these things, then we need to make sure that they're actually supported and not just financially contributed to.
Well, I go, and I know some staff goes. It might not be, I don't think we might be hitting the 10, but we might be hitting the 5.
Yeah, I think there's benefit to the district for staff or board members being present at these events. We can't just crawl into a hole. We need to be out there with the public and doing important things, which I agree, I've never been to this senior inspiration, but
John,
I'm aware
I
of
agree
it.
with you. I agree with you. This is, from my prior experience, this is probably one of the largest events relative to state of the city addresses compared to those which are much smaller. So I think this would be a good use of $600. I think we could easily fill 10 seats. I'd go, others would go.
So, I'm not gonna argue
Take the over-under on that.
or get too focused on this particular issue. It's on here because staff would like some clarity on what it is we're supposed to support and what it is, we don't support. Because I'd prefer not to take up the board's deliberation time in having you discuss and approve a $600 expenditure. If we could have some clearer direction
Yeah, there's-
on what we do and what we don't do. Because, I've gotten hit up a number of times for contributions and just said, no, we don't do that.
Yeah.
But when they come in through you guys, it's different.
Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, I've been on the board now for almost 3 years. I've never been hit up. So, there could be a variety of reasons for that. But, in this case specific, I don't know, maybe we request staff to develop a policy for us to look
Yeah,
at.
I agree.
Well, I think the policy
Yeah,
is.
well, and so I have clients that do have policies, and so I can certainly propose something for you just to think about, not bring them back to adopt the next meeting. So, from a legal point of view, it would be best if there were either a water component in the event or there was something there where the district was advocating for its water mission, like a booth or an exhibit or whatever the case may be. I get the concern. And we can come forward with policies to kind of show you where that dividing line is.
I think that's helpful, you know, and then the next component in my mind is there a budget?
There isn't.
You know, I mean, I don't know, because I'm not big on the one-off, oh, you know, the squeaky wheel's gonna get the money, or the first one in gets the money, or whatever that. I mean, if there's a budget and a plan and a strategy, I mean, if it really is beneficial for the district, which I think it needs to be, then we should be able to evaluate these requests based on
Okay.
their benefit, right? And like I said, I think this is a good one from what I know about it, but, you know, is it 5,000 a year, or what is, you know, what is the kind of the whole project look like?
Because you're a very large entity, obviously, so you just need to be
So,
careful.
if I may, when you're looking at that, some agencies, what they do is they allocate a budget individually to each district to do, or they do one big pot. So maybe you decide a small amount up to, say, 1,000 for each district, just ideas. And then anything over 1,000 would have to come to the board. It's done differently at
Yeah,
different
why don't we look at
organizations.
options? I mean, I know that even we could probably do like a pre-approved list of events that we
Correct,
agree
something
are,
like a committee.
are beneficial and big enough, and I mean,
I think we're, you know, depending on how you look at it, we may already be doing some of this without really making it clear that we're doing it. Like, I'm just thinking of the DVBA, where I believe we're a silver sponsor, so we're paying 1,000 when membership is less than that. So that extra money goes to further the cause of the organization. I think I might be missing that, but I think that's true.
I don't recall the amount, but I know like DVBA, and as Jim mentioned, the chambers, we are members of the chambers. And then the other events that have come through are usually, I think, Director Nelson requested the WEF,
Water education.
Water
Yeah,
Education
which has a
Foundation.
clear net.
Yeah, those are
nexus
clear.
that
Those are,
has water in the name, it's
yeah,
easier.
so,
I don't know. I think there's, even if it's not specifically a water related thing, it could have potential benefit to the sort of the profile of the agency, of how we're
yeah.
viewed in the community,
I'm-
which I think is
yeah,
really
and
important.
I'm thinking more of like these community events that I know are, you know, big, they're valley-wide, they have a long history. I mean, John, Supervisor Benoit, you know, used to do them also, so.
So with the,
I mean, I'm okay with, I don't know, do we need to take action to approve this one?
this one. Mhm.
We can do
Yes.
that. We can do that, but I think Jeff, if you could come back with
Of course.
a policy or some alternative
Yes.
policies, just so we can have a better sense of what
Yeah.
the big picture looks like,
Okay.
you know?
Got it.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
so
you.
is
I
there-
appreciate it.
Is there a motion to approve this?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
Second. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good. Yeah.
you.
Appreciate you bringing that up.
No, thank you.
You going, right?
I'm not going.
So all RSVP for all of you?
Yeah.
I didn't go last year, but
Yeah.
I'll try to
I
go
don't
this year.
even remember the date. Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know. Okay. On
Sabrina,
to
good morning.
8C. Good morning, Sabrina.
Good morning.
Go ahead.
March 28th. Just for that last item. No, go ahead.
Let's see.
The request today is our recommendation of award to Granite Construction Company in the amount of $743,347 for construction of the Palm Desert Operations Parking Lot Phase 2 project, with additional expenditures and a total request of $900,000. This is a multi-phase project. We completed Phase 1 in October 2020. This will be Phase 2 of the project, and then Phase 3 will commence at the beginning of next fiscal year. It's included in the general district capital improvement plan budget in the amount of $1 million. So we did come under that. So I think that's pretty exciting considering how bids have been coming in lately. We did get 8 bids on this project. The highest bid was just over $1 million. So we got what we consider a pretty good deal on this. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Is the timing about, what would the useful life of this pavement, is it about right?
Oh, yeah.
Or-
So the existing parking lot is 29 years old, so we far exceeded the useful life, and we're beyond any repair remediation at this point, so we're gonna take it all the way down. below base and replace the entire pavement section.
29 years?
Yeah.
Oh, sounds pretty good. Okay.
I did notice that you have a woman-owned subcontractor involved in this project, so I was happy to see that.
Yeah, that's correct. And then we included all the documents in the package as
Yeah,
well.
thank you for that.
Yeah, of course.
All right. Is there a motion to approve 8C?
I will move approval.
And I will second it. So we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Passed 3-0. Thanks, Sabrina.
Thanks,
you.
Sabrina.
D. This is the task order with Stantec. For the,
Good morning, President Powell, members of the board, staff, audience. For the record, my name is Armando Rodriguez with the Engineering Department. And the purpose of this request is to seek approval of a task order with Stantec for $349,592.85 for engineering design services for the Garfield mitigation site, which is part of a mitigation measure requirement, part of our for permit for the construction of the Palm Desert Replenishment Phase 2 facility. So in addition, we're asking for some soft costs for $36,000 on project management, $30,000 for contingency. Our total request is $415,592. As you know, we've been trying very hard to construct the Palm Desert Groundwater Replenishment Facility Phase 2. That would entail 3 ponds to replenish up to 15,000 acre feet. And we have completed our design. We're currently getting it ready to go out to bid here in late spring, early summer. And as you might know, we have been struggling with our permitting, but thanks to the environmental staff, we have the permits. Happy to report that we have the California Department of Fish and Wildlife 1600 stream bed permit and the Regional Water Quality Control Board permit. And the one that we just got as a Christmas gift in December was the U.S. Army Corps 404 permit. But as part of that, there is a habitat mitigation and monitoring plan that was tied to that permit. And as you recall, last time we were here, there was an option to do in lieu credits and buy these through the the Coachella Valley Conservation Commission Army Corps in lieu program. And unfortunately, the bank was not selling any more credits when we stand in line. There was no more for you. And not because they're not, but because the program wasn't advancing on the projects that they had committed to. And so the Army Corps put a stop. We were disappointed with that decision, of course, because we wanted to continue forward. We had the commitment. It was committed somewhere in the neighborhood of 4.6 million. But funny how life is, right? At the time, you look at it and you say, oh, wow, where's my job going? And so you're looking at 4.6 million. And so we went back, established a habitat mitigation monitoring plan. We found this site, the Garfield site, which is 3.1 million. And in essence, we got to establish a wetland, marshland, and install about 4,000 feet of a pipeline to create that water source. And lo and behold, it was cheaper by about 2.5 million. So while we were disappointed on the in lieu, this is in essence a better story. And so we're able to get this permit, this mitigation done. And so here we have to do the design of that wetland and also the pipeline. So we're seeking your approval to continue with Stantec on this task order. With that, I'll close to see if there's any questions that you might have.
I don't. No. Yeah, I mean, as long as we can move forward with our phase 2 at our groundwater replenishment, I'm in favor of it. And yeah, good job getting lucky and saving a couple $1 million.
We got lucky. Sometimes we do get lucky.
I remember that what was it, 4.5 million they wanted?
Right.
That's crazy. All right. Is there a motion to approve 8D?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Oh, all in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Pass 3-0. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Armando.
This is the environmental performance security. Good morning.
David, good morning.
Go ahead, David.
Thank you, President Powell, members of the board. So this item, well, to be brief, is basically we're requesting that the general manager, or the board request the general manager secure an environmental mitigation performance security, and this is in relation to the reservoirs 4711 3 and 4 project. California Department of Fish and Wildlife will be submitting a stream bed alteration agreement, and within that agreement, they were requiring a mitigation piece of that we're expecting to be around $90,000. What we're asking the board to approve is kind of the guardrails to that agreement, since we don't have a final approved amount from CDFW on that, as well as the type of agreement that we would need to do, either potentially a letter of credit, or we're looking at an escrow agreement for that piece of it. Engineering will be coming back later this spring when they bring this project out to bid, but this allows this process to keep moving forward for us.
Okay.
I'm happy to answer any additional questions you may have.
Nope. Is there a motion to approve 8E?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that passed 3-0. Thank you, David.
And just for the board, David's responsibilities are basically developing and handling the budget, and all the grants and loans also fall under David. Any other major parts there that I've neglected to to highlight?
Oh, it's just all a lot of the fun things. So I always say that it's more the financial planning and analysis, so the things that don't fit into kind of different windows. And I think as we've gotten more of these agreements that we've had to do, with Bureau of Indian Affairs, with Bureau of Land Reclamation, some of these things that's come up, it's been a little bit more of how do we figure out what type of financing mechanism work for these things. So I think that's one of those new things as these are coming forward, and we seem to be getting more of these, how to have more of a consistent method that the agencies will actually agree with on moving forward on some of these.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Under written communications, there were two that are, one resolved, one pending.
Yes.
Got those. Reports to be filed? I don't know what that
Nelson.
is. Nothing. And then we have a quick
Okay.
update from Robert on
That is in the meetings.
on the strategic plan. Hi, Robert, again.
Hello again. Let's see, I think the presentations in front of you is very much the same format. No real status changes, from last quarter, so happy to take any questions as needed. Should you have any?
Robert, I just had one question on.
Yes, sir.
On financial stability. You talk about the draft CIP plan coming
Right.
to the board in March next month. So is that, for some reason, I thought we already had that discussion at one level. But is this, can you just give me more detail on what this will incorporate?
Maybe I will turn it over to my trusty financial colleagues.
Okay, thank you.
Or the immediate sponsor.
Or engineering manager, or director, sorry.
Thank you. So every year, around March, April, we bring the next year's CIP to you. So this will be for FY25. And I think the meeting is March 19th.
March 19th.
It's a study session. So we'll be going over all the projects, that we want to put in the CIP beginning July 1st through the end of June 30th.
So is that a one-subject meeting? Because if we've got other items on that agenda, it tends to get pushed to the bottom. So is
It's all CIP.
it is.
We do motor pool, it's part of the CIP,
Okay.
but usually Stuart does his motor pool presentation, and then I do the rest of the CIP.
Okay,
Or
good.
for the rest of the funds.
Good.
And then Carla will also provide a finance look ahead in terms of what the rate impacts are based on what we're presenting.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
Sorry, sir. Isn't there also a requirement to share this with either?
Yes, following the study session, then we share the proposed CIP with all of the land planning agencies, and they have 60 days to provide us with comments. So we like to do this, so we have that 60 days before we propose to take it for adoption in June.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Carrie. And thanks, Robert.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Oh, that's screaming. I get tied up here in meetings.
Okay, so on to board general comments. Director Aguilar?
None, John, none.
None.
None. Huh. I don't think I have any either. Okay. Oh, well. Oh, you probably have it on yours, huh? That we went to 15%. Isn't that exciting? Had the wettest 2 months ever in California, and
Yes.
we managed to get to 15%. I'm
All right,
sure you're
that's
bringing
one less
that.
item for me.
That was noteworthy, I guess. It'll go up. Are there any board requests for future agenda items?
No.
Hearing none. On to the meetings. We're going to have several from Vice President Estrada. So-
Before you begin, I'm sorry, Mr. President, I just want to note for the record that Director Nelson did provide a written report,
Yes.
which was distributed, will be added to the record, identifying notes on the meetings listed. I think it was item, what would it be, 11A16, 11A20, and 11A22, as well as 2 additional meetings to be reported on that we will include.
Okay. So the first 16, all but one of them are yours, Castelo.
All right, okay.
Go for it.
This is going back, so I'm gonna have to remember.
Yeah, just keep it brief.
Okay, December 6th, some of the State Water Board staff that was going to be here for the celebration with the state on their 100th consolidation that we had at the Westside Elementary School, they got here a day earlier, and they wanted to take a closer look at some of the projects that we're working on. And so I spent almost the entire day with staff visiting the multiple sites across the Eastern Coachella Valley. On the 9th, that was a meeting between staff and our federal lobbyist. We were kind of brainstorming on how to set up our celebration that we are putting together, which is now scheduled for April 5th. And we were also discussing efforts on how to possibly pay a visit to DC in the near future to kind of try to create some relationships with the senator there, Senator Padilla, and just strategies on how to engage our Congressman Raul Reese. On the 10th, that was a meeting between CBWD and COD, specifically regarding the Mecca Thermal Campus. As you know, we've been in conversations with them going back as far as maybe 2008 about a potential campus in the Mecca site. There is a site there now. It's very small. Right now I think it's more of a kind of a satellite campus with kind of not permanent buildings. And they are on septic tanks. I think they have limited water supply. And they wanted to kind of get an update on whether the infrastructure that we've put in place in the past few years has kind of created a better situation for them. So we shared some numbers with them as to where our current facilities are at and what they would have to do. So good meeting. The 11th pre-meeting to discuss our celebration. So we've actually set up some recurring meetings between staff, Scott's department, and myself to really hone in on the date for the celebration, kind of what we want to have there, speakers, things like that. And so we've been meeting about every week to discuss that. That was one of those meetings. On the 12th, I had a meeting with Assistant General Manager Robert Cheng in preparation for a visit to Metropolitan Water District. I was invited by the chairman to attend the tour that he put together for Northern California supervisors. So he brought down a cohort of Delta supervisors that spent 2 days touring the San Diego area and the LA area. I think to try to just showcase the kind of the reliance of the Delta to Southern California, and so we had a pre-meeting to kind of go over kind of the latest on where the Delta sat in Sites Reservoir. On the 17th, I had mediation. I was there on that same day. That's when I took off to Metropolitan Water District. I did not participate on that day they were in San Diego, but I wasn't on the tour of San Diego. They were in San Diego, and then they landed at Metropolitan Water District, right there at their headquarters for a roundtable discussion and dinner. So that's where I arrived, and there was it was actually an official meeting because a lot of they had enough directors, Metropolitan Water District directors, that they had quorum, so they opened up the meeting as a general meeting, and had a conversation with the supervisors about their thoughts and ideas on the Delta projects and sites. On the 18th, that was the second day of the tour, and that involved us going to the Pure Water Facility, partnership between Metropolitan Water District and I believe LA County sanitation districts. It's like a demonstration project where they're taking the wastewater and I think recycling, part of their management strategy to replenish some of their groundwater basins. And I think what I'm hearing is that kind of the beginning of direct potable use, maybe. So pretty interesting facility there. We also visited the mayor of Compton to talk about some of their issues. They have, I think they don't have a big system, but they're 100% also groundwater. I believe they have the ability to take in water from Met, but they really don't, or they don't do a lot. But they have big issues with I don't know if it's PFAS or there's a contaminant that they have issues with, and it's kind of pushing them to have to shut down certain wells, and so it's increasing their need for access to metropolitan water deliveries, which then puts more stress on them being able to have supplies from the State Water Project. And I think that was kind of a way to show the supervisors that this water from the State Water Project does trickle down to real people, and so there's a big need in Southern California for that. On let's see. Okay, on the 19th, 20 and 21, that was the well session 1, which we kind of host them here and set up a number of speakers. Director Nelson is a speaker. I set up a Salton Sea Authority, Patrick, to speak, and then so that was a good event. I think we have at least 3 council members from the city of Coachella that are participating in that, and we also have a IID director, Director Eugenio, who's part of that. And January 22nd, that's, as I mentioned, those are our recurring meetings in preparation for our celebration event. On the 25th, I did have a Riverside LATCO meeting, but I don't think I need a report on that because
You're not compensated.
I'm not yet, so you can scratch that. On the 31st, I was there. I was at that meeting.
Yeah.
That was mediation with the Agua Caliente. On the 13th, I was not able to make that meeting. And those are it. Long list.
Oh, yeah, we have more. Catch your breath. Let's see, February 13th, Director Bianco and I were with, in Coachella, a two meeting with IID, so they had their general manager and our general manager, and sort of turning over a new leaf, so to speak, I think, in our relationship. Thought it went pretty well.
I was
February
not.
14th?
Yeah, I was not at the Colorado River
Okay.
meetings.
So the 14th is no. That one's Bianco. Salton Sea Authority on the 15th.
Yes, we had it was our general meeting, but I think the one thing that I recall was pretty interesting was we had a presentation by a doctor from UCR and
Dr. Lowe.
Dr. Lowe, and then we also had a presentation by I don't know if he's a director of the, what do they call it, the basin, it's out there.
Yeah, he's the air pollution control officer.
Yeah, he's the air pollution control officer that manages the program at Lake
Owens.
Lake Owens, and their mitigation program on that, which is super expensive. So we had two presentations. One again was on the Lake Owens mitigation, and I think it was for us to get a sense of how they're tackling that problem, the number of staff that's dedicated to that program, the budget that's assigned to that program, kind of how they're doing. And I think it was a good comparison to what we're doing. I mean, compared to what they're doing, we're not doing anything. And so that was one presentation. I think it was helpful to hear it because we have two supervisors there that I think are involved in their respective county air pollution boards, right? Supervisor Perez sits on AQMD, and I believe, I'm not sure if Supervisor Kelly sits on the
Yeah, I'm not sure.
on the Imperial, I forget the name for them, but their equivalent of their air pollution district. And then, so that was one presentation, and the other one was by Dr. Lowe, who was looking into the causes of respiratory illnesses around the sea, primarily asthma, nosebleeds, headaches, things like that. And he kind of reported on his findings where he seems to believe that there's evidence, and again, I think he did some of these trials on lab mice, and what he's, at least with what he's bumping up against is that the dust in around the sea might have some sort of bacteria that is causing inflammation of the lungs. It's making the body, for folks that breathe it, react as if they're fighting off some sort of bacteria. I forget the technical name for it.
Yeah, endotoxins.
Endotoxins, and so very interesting. Maybe there's more to do there. That's one of the things that we were asking is, well, what's the next step? And didn't really hear an answer on that. But that was kind of the big takeaway for me, Director Aguilar.
No, I'd agree with you. As it turns out, you actually chaired the meeting, but the Dr. Lowe presentation on the endotoxins was really pretty disturbing for the entire board to hear, because it just says that the problem of inhalants is much worse than had been represented, and the entire board, particularly the two supervisors and ourselves, expressed some pretty serious, urgent need to do an action plan to deal with that right away. So hopefully the next board meeting, we'll hear some specific items that will help mitigate that problem, because it's taking far too long and too many people are getting sick.
One of the, one of the things that's going on is that I think the 10-year plan had goals on how many acres of exposed playa had to be mitigated in, by year 2025 and subsequent years, things like that. Which I think the 10-year program is supposed to be finished in like 2030. So we have like 5 years left, I think, maybe. I'm not sure. But we're not hitting the goals. And so one of the questions that we raised was whether there was a need to revisit the priority areas based on these new findings. Because if this is true that there's these endotoxins that are in the dust and the exposed playa that then are now causing these issues for people's health, then maybe that ought to have some priority. And I'm not sure that that's captured in the 10-year plan. So those were kind of the questions that were being raised. And that was it for that.
Okay. This 19th? You had something?
Yeah, again, those are our updates for our community celebration.
Yeah, so, and then we had our board meeting listed for the 20th, principals meeting on 21st, that was the one that you weren't
Yeah,
there.
21st I was not
I
there.
was there, we made some progress. And I guess that's it. Are there any other meetings we need to report on?
I had a meeting on Friday, and that was with Heather from, is it O'Melveny?
Heather Wells?
Heather Wells?
Yeah, Heather.
O'Melveny.
Yeah, so that's in preparation. I'm going to be a guest speaker at USC, the School of Law, on Thursday, and so that was in preparation for going over the PowerPoints and kind of the panel instructions and the whole gist of it. So looking forward to that.
Good. What's the topic?
Water for the future. I think it's my understanding is that it's a real estate. The folks in the audience are kind of real estate folks, and they want to get a sense of how water is going to play into real estate and development, things like that. So they're really interested on like availability and Sigma and process.
Okay.
So,
Good.
Zoe helped me with the presentation, so thank you, Zoe.
Great. Any others? Is there a motion to approve per diem for the meetings reported on? I'll make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, pass 3-0. General manager report.
Yes, sir, just one thing. We have selected, or I guess the group has selected a date for the employee event, winter event, which will be December 7th. And it will be at the Indian Wells facility there between, I guess, the Renaissance and the Hyatt. There's an Indian Wells, I think they call it the View.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not going to be as formal an event as it has perhaps in the past. There'll be some outdoor activities, I am told.
They do have those there.
So, December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day. That's all I got, sir.
Bring your golf clubs. I'm assuming that has something to do with, they have,
They probably have rentals, yeah.
yeah, they have some interesting things out there. Cool. Council,
I'll pass today.
thank you. Any department reports? Now's your
No,
chance.
I don't see anybody jumping up.
don't
Not
either.
even one.
Not even one. Okay, at this time, we'll recess into closed session to consider the items 13A through F, and then following that, we will reconvene and report out on closed session. So regular meeting is reconvened. We do not have any reportable action from closed session, and with no further business, we are adjourned.